Hello, Patreon people from Jen, Tess, and
Monty.
Monty. Baby Monty.
Thanks for being here. He doesn't look very here, does he?
He's super enthusiastic. He's thrilled to be
Yeah.
here. It's an honor. The many times, like with my niece, we'll try and use the pups as like mascots to kind of get us enthused for doing different parts of our homework. And this is Monty. Like, so we're like, oh yay, maths with our mascot Monty. And he's like, brr.
Yeah, I really care. I've only really seen him hyper, I think.
True. Yeah.
Yeah.
He is
like this.
A big dozer, a big cuddler.
Yeah.
And he had a big morning at the dog park. So he's such a day. Just a crazy day.
He's
needs some
adorable.
downtime. Anyway, hello, Patreon people. Thank you for logging on and supporting us.
Yes.
And sorry we're a day late. That is my fault. I overestimated my capacity.
Yeah, you had a big day.
So we were meant to record yesterday, but I had a really big work presentation at an international conference, education conference, which actually went really well and it was exciting. But I finished the presentation and I was feeling really energized. So I was like, yeah, Tess, let's do it. Let's record tonight. Yeah. I've got a bottle of wine. Let's do it.
Yeah.
And then within the hour, I was like, ooh.
Not going to happen. Yeah. It's funny how like when you are that energized and you feeling ready for something like that, it's very hard to switch gears and or realize that you're going to switch gears.
Yeah.
I should say.
That it's sort of you forget that, usually I hit a wall. Like
after this dopamine is going to last as long as I need it, and then it'll be
incredible, but very soon I'm gonna be like Monty right now.
Yes.
Exhibit A.
Yes. Anyway, well, I've been really processing this whole all of this new information about neurodivergence.
Yeah.
And I'm completely obsessed with it. So
well, this is, I guess, the next episode in what I'm now calling our test series. Because we've done our erotic blueprints tests. I definitely want us to do like our love and apology language tests together at some point.
Yeah.
So this can be just us exploring sex, relationships, mental health, divergence, neurotypical, whatever.
Yeah.
All in the one.
Interesting to even look at as things that people experience.
Yeah.
I just love it. So a little bit of context is that I have recognized that a number of my clients, especially sort of regulars, do tend to have neurodivergence traits, either ADHD or autism. And one of them I felt might have been using more literal language than I usually would in a conversation. So I started looking it up so that I could get the hang of what he meant sometimes.
Yeah, and how to best communicate with someone who's sort of thinking in that way.
To understand, and to sort of not get so caught out by it, I suppose, of using the same words for different meanings. And then I stumbled across a very comprehensive list of common traits or experiences that women on the autism spectrum have, and freaked out because
you were like, excuse me, but who's written this list about me? This is rude.
I know. It was actually terrifying to see things that you've just I've just put down to either there's a lot of things that I do that I know aren't typical of ADHD, can't be explained through other things.
Yeah.
But I just thought maybe we're all a bit odd in our
own
processing.
ways.
And I also went, it's just maybe I'm just highly introverted. Maybe I just don't really care enough about maybe I'm just more honest, I suppose, in my behavior or something like that. I just put it down to other things. And then, but reading this list and I went, oh God, like maybe it's something else. I mean, but then the other day I did have a psychologist appointment and I ran it. I didn't go through everything, but I did run through a few things and I said, I'm starting to wonder whether I'm on the spectrum. And he said, I've never thought that about you.
Interesting.
So, interesting. Because the 5 closest people in my life that I've told, like 5 of the closest people in my life I have told, no one's been surprised. They're like, yeah, you've got some stuff. Like,
it checks out.
There's something. Yeah, no one, I thought I'd be explaining it to people and I haven't been. So I'm like, okay. I'm on, but then he didn't pick up on ADHD. He's really good with trauma stuff. He's really good with attachment stuff. He's really good with OCD stuff.
Yeah, gotcha.
Not so much this, I don't think. So I don't necessarily trust his judgment.
Sure.
Anyway.
And as well, because those are his areas, that's most of the stuff that you have been covering. Yeah, so you haven't necessarily had the opportunities to go, oh, I process in this particular way.
Right.
You know, is that, that hasn't really come up as much because that's not been the focus of the therapies that you have been doing. So it makes sense.
The other thing is that I know he uses a lot of information from our interactions. So he doesn't just go through he doesn't just go with what we talk about, he goes with how we communicate.
Yeah.
Psychology would probably be a special interest of mine, and I'm really good at one-on-one communication and using psychological concepts to empathize.
Yes.
So that was his big thing. He was like, you do perspective shift and you do have empathy. He said, if you're on the spectrum, it would be so mild because you can do those things. And I was like, okay, that's if I'm focusing in the right direction. I'm not sure that I'm that natural at it, actually.
Sure.
Yeah, that was my thinking.
Yeah.
But anyway.
And I think there are elements of gender in this as well. So, and that's why it's really valuable that the checklist we're looking at today is for, in particular, I guess, a female experience or a women's experience of this, because we know that girls and women or female identifying people are certainly conditioned to behave socially with some kind of emotional literacy and things like that in a way that we've been taught since birth to do. And so often then a lot of the common assumptions about autism or neurodiversity and what it presents as often is covered by some of our socialized skills.
Right, exactly.
And so often don't seem as black and white or as obvious as you might see in someone male presenting who hasn't had that kind of socialization around social scripts and emotional intelligence.
Yeah, that's it. And even just the expectation that a woman wouldn't be blunt, would put, I got the feedback, as soon as I started texting, I had multiple people tell me that I needed to put smiley faces in there because I sounded like a bitch. So I did.
Right.
And so, and then, you just get told things more quickly, I think.
Yes, absolutely.
And I was even thinking about like the stages of play. Like there's this idea that we learn to play on our own and then we might learn to play with someone in the vicinity as children. And then there's this idea that a lot of people on the spectrum might stop at that parallel place of playing independently. I think that I I see a lot of value in associate play, which I think is that maybe moving towards a similar goal but doing separate tasks or sharing items. But even that's like that's very different to collaborating and
collaborative.
So sometimes some of it's sort of like interesting to go, I want to know why anyway. So I thought we'll go through this list
sure,
and just reflect on it.
Yep, absolutely.
I'm trying to work out whether I can share my screen.
If it won't let you, I'm sure I can give permission. Hang on.
Oh, yeah. Okay, disabled.
Does that let you now?
Oh, cool. nice. Wow. So I could actually just choose that. Share. Is that working?
Yeah, perfect. That's awesome.
And then I'll make that bigger for me. Hectic.
Awesome.
Okay, so this is designed to be, what does it say? A springboard for discussion.
Yeah. So it's not your kind of quote unquote formalized.
No. I believe it was this one that did say at the end it's useful to discuss with therapists, but it's not. And if you could, so the way I've been using this is by like reading through it and then going, okay, now if I look at the diagnostic criteria, knowing the many ways this could look, is it, would I meet the criteria? Not quite sure yet.
Yeah.
Anyway, so deep thinker, can't stop thinking. Yeah. Also, some of this is quite, I feel like some of this puts value judgments on it. So like the third one is highly intelligent. I wish they wouldn't use that term. I know that on most personality tests and stuff, like I would be highly on the thinking, like more logic focused than feelings focused. But that might just be because I'm out of touch with my emotions. Okay, drawn to poetry. I went to the death conference and loved it, and that was very poetic.
So for context for our listeners, one of the amazing, actually a few of the amazing academics, Monty wants to say something. Okay, a few of the amazing academics that I work with did this really interesting project with a bunch of artists from all kinds of different cultural backgrounds, and their topic was on death and dying, and kind of the end of life and how that is processed. So the artists created pieces of work, whether they be written or visual or audio visual, about their perspectives on death and dying. And while they were creating those works, the researchers then also kind of had these not like super formal interviews, but these discussions as the works were being created about the meaning that's made around death and dying. Anyway, all of that is to say, I bought tickets to this exhibition of the artist's work, and then I was away, and Tess happened to be in Adelaide. And so I said, Tess, do you want to go to a death conference?
Yeah.
And she said, yes. And so off she went.
Best night of my year.
Oh, death conferences, they're an absolute riot.
Absolutely. Yeah. Highly recommend. Okay. Sees things at multiple levels, including her own thinking processes. I do feel that everything can be broken down further.
Yes.
Analyzes existence, the meaning of life, and everything continually. Death conference.
We'll just loop back again and emphasize that the death conference was a highlight for Tess.
Serious and matter of fact in nature. When I'm not serious and matter of fact in nature, I'm doing that for social acceptance.
Right. So you're sort of almost in a performance. It's I know this is meant to be like a fun activity, so I'm going to bring this like light kind of energy. Yeah.
Yes.
Gotcha.
That's very rarely is it not that.
Yeah. It's not your sort of natural state of being.
I can enjoy nailing it. I'm like that with a lot of social situations. I can enjoy getting it right, but I don't necessarily, feel it. Doesn't take things for granted. I don't even know why that's on the list.
It's an interesting one, isn't it? It sort of sticks out there as a bit different to the others.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
Doesn't it?
Analyzing stuff. I don't know.
Yeah.
I'm not sure whether it's like.
Like do
appreciating?
They mean, do they mean being appreciative, or do they mean that you don't take, that you're analytical, that you don't sort of take anything as it's just presented? Do you know what I mean?
Right,
could mean either.
Yeah. Who knows, really?
Yeah.
Doesn't simplify. No, everything is complex. I'm not sure what that's referring to as well. I feel like I need more than that. Gets lost in own thoughts and checks out. Yes. Is that dissociating? is that being lost in my own thoughts.
Yeah. Could be a bit of both.
A lot of these, I came back to, am I just traumatized? Who knows?
Right. Yeah.
Naive, I don't know. I think I was until early 20s. I think yeah, but I don't know what that's related to as well.
Well, and I
upbringing,
think too,
church.
Yeah, I was just going to say, as you sort of touched on in the fantastic interview that's just been published in Red Magazine, is it?
Oh yeah.
You touch a bit on churchy background and basically how little exposure to the world outside of that very specific, environment you had. Yeah. So in that sense, naivety is kind of to be expected.
Yeah. Honest, yes, I'd say. Experiences trouble with lying. I don't know that I have trouble with lying because I kind of call it because I think that might be trouble with lying. I think that maybe you're meant to have an ability to go, in this context, maybe a little bit of a lying is okay.
Right. Whereas for you, it feels not really possible to lie, or
it's hard work, but I'm better at it than some people that I know.
Yeah, right.
It's an effort, a real effort, to stick with a lie.
Right. And does correct me if I'm wrong, is that more so, because I think for some people the issue with lying is like a moral one, but then for others the issue with lying is more that it's not straightforward, that it's complicated to keep up with and it's complicated to follow through. And so there's kind of two different experiences of why you might not lie,
This desire for things to be correct. And as correct as possible.
Yes.
And to not lead and be led down the wrong path or lead anyone down a wrong path. Sure. So I don't know. I feel like if you start, then things won't make sense later on.
Yes.
Not sure.
Yeah.
What that is, though.
Yeah.
Finds it difficult to understand manipulation and disloyalty. I'm not sure. I guess I don't know, to be honest. I feel like it's hard to say. How could anyone say to what degree they understand manipulation if they're being manipulated?
Yeah.
I suppose, I'm not sure. Easily fooled and conned. This is hard to, because I got so obsessed with psychology in my early 20s because I recognized I was really naive. I guess it's hard for me to say where I'm at now.
Yeah.
Because of that, is that masking? I'm not sure.
Yeah.
Or like finding strategies around it. I am very quick to cut. I don't really, as soon as a tiny breach of trust happens, I do tend to pull away. I'm not sure whether that's a trauma thing as well.
Yeah.
Or attachment stuff. Anyway, feelings of confusion and being overwhelmed perpetually. This is my life. This is every day, forever. Feelings of being misplaced and or from another planet. As a child, I always conceptualized it as everyone else is from another planet, but maybe it was me. I definitely had this internal, this fear, and I talked to my mum about it, that she was an alien, and that was my whole worldview, really. Is that no one else, everyone's I thought that she was wearing a mask. I was pretty old enough, 6 or so. Thought she was wearing a mask, and I kind of thought maybe everyone does. And I think this might come back to what we'll get up to with facial expressions, not really relating with them.
Yeah. I know my sister who is on the autism spectrum. She sort of talks about having periods where she did feel like she was that everyone, not so much maybe aliens, but everyone was kind of in this weird world that they weren't making logical decisions. They were just strange. And she's sort of the one sitting there going, I know how it should be. Yeah. Like, I've got the answers, and it's just everyone else is weird. Everyone's just not getting it, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah. And not in a like, you know, I'm better than everyone way, just more like, what's wrong with everyone?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I guess, I don't know whether she would feel this as well. For me, it's a bit like you're looking into this world.
Yes.
And you can interact with it, but you'll be acting. So but then things go well for you in that world if you do that. So
yes, if you perform in that way.
Yeah. But so then my confusion, I think, was, are we all just acting? And then not knowing.
Yeah. And maybe we are. I mean,
maybe
it's not,
that's
you know,
true.
it's probably not a wrong assumption in a lot of ways.
Exactly. Yeah. Feelings of isolation. Yes, I guess. Yeah. I guess maybe that goes back to that stuff of looking into other worlds.
Yeah.
Abused or taken advantage of as a child, but didn't think to tell anyone. Something that I did think maybe I should have told. Like, when I was reading that, I was like, oh, I don't know. But then I thought, oh, maybe when I started high school, a few things did happen and I really didn't think of telling anyone.
Yeah.
And that might be trauma background as well.
Yeah.
But I think I might have won a arm wrestling competition or something like that in home group or PE or whatever it was. And then I started getting called names. And one girl in particular started punching me every morning, like properly, like really, yeah.
What the fuck?
Yeah, weird. But like, you know, we were kids, like who knows where she was at in her life and her stuff. But bullying behavior.
Severely, yeah.
Yeah. Never thought of telling anyone. And then a boy would like give me a hard time at the lockers, and like if I was like trying to get things out of the locker, he'd like come and do the deodorant thing, like where you just hold it on someone's back and stuff like that. I'd never think of telling anybody like that stuff was going on. I didn't even think of it until this was on the list. I was like, oh yeah, maybe.
Whoa.
Yeah, but I had a crush on him, so I let it slide. Boys always mean when they like you, right? Who knows?
Yeah, man.
Yeah, so I don't know. Okay, this is probably where it does get a bit more me. Survives overwhelming emotions and senses by escaping in thought or action. Yes. I do try and make sense of it, and do try and do things that I feel like I can master.
Yeah.
Escapes regularly through fixations, obsessions, and over-interest in subjects. 100%.
Yeah.
Who doesn't though? I thought.
Yeah. To a certain extent, I think we do. Yeah.
I guess I do have the same subjects that I go back to.
Yeah.
Escapes routinely through imagination, fantasy, and daydreaming. Yes. I think so. I think more so as a child, but yes, definitely. Escapes through mental processing. This is where I think my obsession with psychology is at. Escapes through the rhythm of words. 100%.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah.
Wow.
And the shapes of words and the structure of a phrase, and that can be a nice way of making sense of things if the content feels confusing.
Yeah.
Philosophizes continually. Yes. Had imaginary friends in youth? No. I don't think so. Imitates people on TV or in movies, 100%. Still, yeah.
Yeah.
More so as a kid.
Yeah.
I think that what I thought was playing was actually copying TV shows.
Yeah.
Treated friends as pawns in youth. Friends were students, consumers, members. I suppose so. Maybe. Like, not so much friends.
As serving a certain like a specific purpose
in a role. Yeah. And I was in a role.
Yeah.
Makes friends with older or younger females more so than friends her age.
Interesting.
Often in young adulthood. 100%.
Yeah.
And even look at the friends that I made over here.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
40s. Imitates friends or peers in style, dress, attitude, interests, and manner. Sometimes speech. Absolutely. I did do a couple of episodes with more of a Queenslander accent. Thank you, Abby Chatfield. And I do just like when I was doing heaps of activism, I dressed like the other activists. When I was doing then I went to sex work, dressing like more sex work style. Like it's happened again and again. And then that crosses over into personal life each time as well.
Yeah, because it's a way of kind of situating, like figuring out the new environment you're in. An obvious way of figuring that out in a sense is that imitation and kind of situating yourself.
Yeah. And I think that even that as a sex worker, there's a lot of in brothels. I noticed, how it sort of became popular for a while for women to have that husky voice. In brothels, a lot of women do have that husky voice, and I actually think it's from talking all night and being loud or being up all night. But I definitely took that on for a while. And as a teenager, definitely. But everyone does, I think, as a teenager. Obsessively collects and organizes objects.
Interesting.
I'd say information, but not objects so much.
Okay. Yeah.
Mastered imitation. I'd say. Escapes by playing the same music over and over. Absolutely. Even if it's not really music I like, it just can be that's the song for that period or that day or that week. On repeat. Escapes through a relationship imagined or real. Absolutely. I think that's that. I don't know whether that's just like issues with limerence or attachment. But I do seem to be able to hold about, like, if people tell me about their days, I don't necessarily retain it unless I memorize that information. But I seem to be able to keep like 2 people in my mind for periods. So I think that it's quite natural at the moment for me to, if you've told me what you've got on, I will kind of know. And then one other person. And that's about it. So the idea of like having a family, it would be overwhelming because I'd be rote learning people's behaviors.
Totally.
Numbers bring ease. Could be numbers associated with patterns, calculations, list time, and or personification. So I thought this was I would have thought this was a no historically because I wasn't very good at maths. But I've since realized that I really like number plates. And I really like the shape of some numbers. Hate the number 3.
Interesting.
Can't stand
it. Fuck off, number 3.
If I've got something on it, 3, it's an annoying thing because I'll be thinking about the number 3 all day. It's like feels incomplete. And I thought everyone felt that.
Interesting. Yeah.
That numbers can represent things.
And I think that being associated with patterns too makes sense. That kind of, it's less about what you do with the numbers as to what they represent or the kind of feeling they evoke, rather than, oh, can I add and subtract and times them? Well,
right. Yeah.
less
Maybe,
relevant.
maybe not. Yeah. It's more like I could probably understand a formula more than I could use it.
Yeah.
And I think some of the numbers come around things around music as well. Like 3 does feel incomplete in 4/4 time.
100%.
So you're waiting for that completion.
Yeah.
Escapes through counting, categorizing, organizing, rearranging.
That's a tick for me.
Yes, that's you.
So much so.
Yeah.
I'm constantly writing budgets. Okay. Even though they're the same, often the same thing.
Right.
Just constantly like, what if I did that there and that there?
Shifting, moving. Yeah. Okay. Escapes into other rooms at parties. Yes. Looking for escape routes. Cannot relax or rest without many thoughts. Yes. Everything has a purpose. Not sure what that means.
Yeah, I can't really place that.
Comorbid attributes, we go. OCD, we know, yes. Sensory issues, we know, yes. Sound, sight, sound, textures, smells, taste, yes. I do organize my food. I wonder if that's like rearrange my food. Generalized anxiety, I'd say so, I guess. Sense of pending danger or doom. I don't really know what that means, but yeah, I guess, as in like, I do have this sense of might fuck up, but maybe that's just anxiety. Polar extremes, absolutely, 100%. I have thought whether this is like, I don't know why, but I thought this might just be ADHD. I thought it might be attachment stuff, but yeah. Depressed or overjoyed, inconsiderate or oversensitive, absolutely. Poor muscle tone, double jointed and or lacking coordination. Yes. So POTS syndrome, that's where this is the dizziness. So I am dizzy like every time I stand up. And I fell over the other day. I fell over my own towel and
I'm sorry. I just, given your running relationship with towels, I just feel like, of course it was a towel that you fell over.
Yes, and I do drop things all the time, which is ironic because I can then decide to do, and like I'll just decide I'm going to learn a pole move that day and I'll do it, but I can't if I'm not focused on it. No chance. No coordination.
Interesting.
Very clumsy. I'll run into door and get it wrong going through a doorway. Like, it's weird. Eating disorders, yes. Food obsessions. Irritable bowel, yes. I do have issues with that kind of stuff. Chronic fatigue, immune challenges, I would say yes. I've just put that down to trauma, but anyways. I have wondered whether I should consider like whether chronic fatigue would fit me better than ADHD sometimes, but I think ADHD symptoms too. Either one. Just not consistent energy. And all or nothing. Can look like chronic fatigue. And for sure has done for the last few days. Misdiagnosed or diagnosed with a mental illness, several. Multiple physical symptoms, yes. So chronic pain and discomfort. Lying on my stomach can feel like my pulse when I'm lying on my stomach. A lot of stuff like that. Freaks me out. Questions placed in the world. I mean, but I thought everyone does. Drop small objects, yes. Wonders who she is, what is expected of her. I mean, yeah, but don't we all? I don't know. Searches for right and wrong. I mean, yes, I like there to be an answer, but I don't know. That's too vague for me to understand.
Gotcha.
Bouts of depression, yeah. Flicks and rubs fingernails. So this shit freaked me out. I've never heard anyone talk about it. So this has been a genuine concern when shooting porn. When that you can't really, yeah. And when I'm filming myself doing pole lessons, before I'm waiting, sometimes even if I'm in a move and my hands aren't doing anything, I start flicking my nails.
Yeah.
Flaps hands when I'm really like got heaps of energy. I thought this was an ADHD thing.
Yeah.
And I would just shake my hands. This one, so tapping hands together. That's not necessarily listed, but I do wonder if that's sort of a version of it. I didn't know I did that until after reading this, and then I was like, oh, maybe that's one of them. I would never do it in the mirror. I would never watch myself do it because I feel like I'm trying to see how other people see me in the mirror.
Right. Okay.
Keeps closed fists. So this was a problem in Cairo. He's like, look, stand how you normally would. And so I'm, relaxed. So I have to tell myself to open my. Yeah. So relaxed is closed.
Yes.
Hands tucked under or between legs. Yes, like pretty much constantly in bed or like if I'm looking for a comfortable position with my legs crossed or something, my hand will be between my legs.
Yeah.
So a lot of that stuff. Paces in circles. Yes, my ex will attest. So,
and you had little circuits too.
Yes, that's true.
Yeah.
Rotations, and he was like, yes. He was like, you're spinning. He's like, are you okay? I was like, yeah. Why? He's like, you're spinning.
You've basically been a whirlwind around our entire apartment. Do I need to assist? Are you okay?
Well, this will be in a line. I'll just be spinning around. I'm like, I'm fine.
Yeah, what are you talking about?
But yeah, moving between rooms is another one.
Yeah. To me, that's just a bigger rotation of spinning.
Yeah, right.
It's just like throughout a whole space.
It is nice. Interactions. Friends have ended friendships suddenly. I don't know, really.
Oh.
I don't think. I'm not sure. Tendency to overshare, probably. I think this is probably a good example.
Yeah, look at what we're doing right now.
The entire podcast, you can just explain the rest. I think probably spills intimate details to strangers. Raised hand too much in class. Didn't participate in class. It is kind of all or nothing with what I will share. I can't stop sharing it or whatever. Blah blah blah. Probably skip some of these. Bring subject back to self. I would say I bring it back to psychology.
Yeah, which is in a sense back to self in that it's your core interest.
Yeah. It's my way of orientating conversation. Comes across as narcissistic and controlling is not narcissistic. I feel like that's not. How about you? Do I come across as narcissistic?
No, that's not how I would describe you. I think if anything, you're focused on how to understand yourself and understand everyone else in order to engage well. So I think that's the opposite of a narcissist. Because I think if you're a narcissist, all you give a shit about is yourself.
Right, yeah.
And your own and yourself and power. Whereas I think for you, that learning and understanding is in order to move through the world well, but also to care for other people. So
I think that's motivation.
Where the motivation is, of course, in part, as it is with all of us, is, hey, can I work out a way to move through the world in a way that's more rewarding for me? That's all of us. But it's also so that I can have relationships with the people that I care about that work for them.
Yeah.
So that's usually a good sign that it's not narcissistic.
Yeah.
Because if it were narcissistic, you'd be going, oh, can I do all this learning so I can manipulate everyone into giving me what I want?
Yeah. I do sometimes wonder whether people like go, oh, you're just trying to put me in a box or something like that. So I can see how it could get, I don't know, interesting. Who knows?
But I think the thing is, like, it's all about those motivations, because I think even in trying to put someone in a box, you're doing that in, like, if you were doing that, you're like, I'm doing that so I can work out how to best respond to you.
Yeah.
And how to best engage with you, as opposed to I'm trying to put you in a box so that I can nail down how to manipulate and get the most out of you. For myself, you know?
Yeah, fair.
Yeah. Sort of depends on those motivations, I think.
Yeah.
And what is it? If you have to ask if you're a narcissist, you're probably not one.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah, true. Shares in order to reach out. Yes, I really can't say no to people when they want something of mine. Right. Often sounds eager, overzealous, or apathetic or disinterested. Yeah. Holds a lot of thoughts, ideas, feelings inside. Yes, I don't tend to share. Even when I am aware of my feelings, I don't tend to share them much. Feels as if she's attempting to communicate correctly. Yeah. Obsesses over the potentiality of relationship with someone, particularly a love interest or a feasible new friendship. 100%, but that could be attachment issues and my family. We all do that.
The F word.
Yes. Confused by the rule of accurate eye contact, trying to face proximity of body, 100%. Body stance and posture in conversation. Yeah, all of that. Proximity of body is probably the tough one for me.
Interesting. As in just not feeling certain, or
feeling like it's too close usually.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah. And not knowing why. Like,
right.
Yeah.
So wanting someone to be further away from you?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Generally.
Yeah.
Yeah. Or feeling like that would be more natural. But I think as people get to know each other, they move closer in conversation.
Yeah.
And I don't understand. Or if they've been close for a purpose, then the proximity gets closer.
Yeah.
And I'm still like, I feel like it's aggressive. But,
yeah.
But it's not.
Yeah.
It's hard to like go, you're fine.
Yeah. Because your body is going like, oh.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Conversations are often exhausting. I mean, ours aren't, but I think that most are.
Yeah.
Questions,
for sure.
the actions and behavior of self and others continually. Yeah. Proximity and stuff. Missing a conversation gene or thought filter. Yeah, probably. Yeah. Trained self in social interactions through reading and studying of other people. Yes.
Yeah. It's a big one, hey?
Yeah. Everything, a lot of stuff that I do and say, I can put down to where I learned it.
Yeah, right. Okay, that makes sense.
Yeah. Visualizes and practices how she will act around others. I do plan all of my hellos and goodbyes.
Yeah, okay. Yeah. Practices and rehearsals in entering room.
Entering room. Difficulty filtering out background noise when talking to others. Yes. Yes.
I feel that so acutely just in life. Like,
yeah, it's just so much of it. So much noise. So much clashing of noise.
And I think sometimes it can depend on the type of noise too, or for me it can.
Yeah.
I think there's certain noises that are more invasive and distracting, for lack of a better term, or disruptive than others.
Yes. Yeah.
And
the combination of noises can be the process, splitting them apart and knowing which one to still focus on. That can be challenging.
Yeah, for sure.
Continuous dialogue in mind. Yes, all of that acting. Sense of humor sometimes seems quirky, odd, inappropriate, or different from others. I do tend to find I get away with it more with men, so I do tend to let that out more with men.
Yeah.
As a child was hard to know when it was her turn to talk. I'm not sure about that.
Yeah, probably a little tricky in your specific context, I think, because of other family dynamics happening. But I know, like, as an example of what this might look like for in another setting, we had a family dinner last night, and my nephew is gorgeous and a lot of fun. But he was actually just telling me, but it was at a big table with all of us sitting around, and he sort of has a strong voice. So he's telling me about this book that they're reading for school. And basically ends up telling the entire plot point sort of over quite a period of time. Doesn't have that a sense of like others, like that I might be taking up a lot of space. And look, I was happy to hear it, but I think, just without that awareness of what's going on around. Yeah.
That's it. Finds norms of conversation confusing. I'm not sure. Finds unwritten and unspoken rules difficult to grasp. Yes. So like if someone says they have an experience, then I'm looking for usually a psychological reason or something like it, because then I can apply it to the next.
Yes.
It becomes a rule. And there'll be,
okay, Monty.
I can imagine it.
Yeah.
He's awake.
He is awake. All right, Mom.
Okay, I think we're getting there. I think we can probably like fly through some of these, because some of them will be very obvious based on podcast episodes. Extreme relief when she doesn't have to go anywhere or talk to anyone, answer calls, or leave the house, blah, blah, blah. I like quickies, basically. Hibernating, yes.
Totally.
One visitor at the home may be perceived as a threat. This can even be a family member. Yes.
Okay.
So a familiar person, 100%. Knowing logically that a house visitor is not a threat, but doesn't relieve anxiety, 100%.
Yeah.
So the thing is, with bookings, I expect that feeling, so it's not as jarring. But when someone I love, it's confusing to me.
Yeah, because you're like, I am actually happy to see this person, but there's a part of my brain and my body that's like, you're in my space. Yeah.
Feelings of dread around upcoming events and appointments on the calendar. Yes, you would relate with that probably.
Very strongly. Yeah.
Knowing she has to leave the house causes anxiety from the moment she wakes up. Yep. All the steps involved. This one is massive.
Yeah.
Others can attest, or some others can attest. Some have observed the overwhelming and exhausting steps of leaving the house.
Yeah.
Prepares herself mentally for outings, excursions. I tend to come back home between so that I can do the process from scratch again and deal with it mentally, rather than going from one thing to another. Often days before a scheduled events. Yes. OCD tendencies. Concepts of time, 100%. Being on time, tracking time, recording time, managing time. Money, I wish. No, I don't think so. I feel like with money it affects me, whereas time affects others. Questions next step and movements continually. Yes, I'm looking at myself as an observer a lot of the time. On a stage being watched, sense of having to act out the right steps, even when she's at home. Yes. Telling self the right. I'm like being a person, being like acting like
performance.
Telling self the right words, positive self-talk doesn't alleviate anxiety. Does it work for anyone? That's the question.
I have strong feelings about CBT.
And
its limitations.
Yes.
I appreciate there are specific treatment protocols that where it is very useful.
I think it can keep people alive sometimes, but I think that's about it.
But I think CBT is very surface level. What
about DBT? I was reading about the other day. It sounds like
DBT is an interesting one. It's usually the treatment that's prescribed for people living with BPD, so borderline personality disorder. It's sort of the treatment that's seen to have the most effect in the case of of BPD, which is usually a very treatment resistant condition. But I would love to do some proper DBT training to have a proper sense of it. But
oh yeah, I feel like it would be okay if it's combined with like other psychotherapy. Anyway, I like the idea of building a healthy relationship with a therapist. I like that concept, and then being able to repeat that in your personal life. But I don't know that that's all it is. I feel like it could also be lots of CBT stuff
for sure.
Managing.
And I think the kind of emphasis on that relationship building, I think, particularly in the case of people living with borderline personality for whom boundaries are so challenging, I think it can be a very precarious kind of therapy to do, and it's something that can go very wrong very easily, depending on both the client and the therapist. So it's certainly not something anyone should be doing without very, very explicit training and like a really clear understanding of what DBT is.
I would say it has had great outcomes when that relationship is right.
Absolutely. So, yeah, for sure. Interesting.
Knowing she's going to stay at home brings peace.
For me, like I woke up this morning and I was like, I don't have to shower today. I do not have to put on a bra today.
Beautiful.
I don't have to see a single human.
Beautiful. Amazing. Wow. Great.
Heaven.
That's awesome. Requires a large amount of downtime, more than I've realized. Realized that in quarantine, I was like, I don't have to cry every day. I could just be alone sometimes. And then after reading this list, I've actually pulled back again, and it's been nice. So feels guilty after spending a lot of time on special interest. Yes, I'd say so. Uncomfortable in public locker rooms, bathrooms, as I think brothels got me out of this, but before then,
brothels are like ripping off a band-aid in that sense, I guess. In the dressing room you go, well, here we are. That's
it. Dislikes being in a crowded gym. Sensitive to sounds, textures, temperature, and or smells while trying all of that. Adjust bedclothes, bedding, and or environment to attempt to find comfort. Dreams are anxiety ridden, vivid, complex, and or precognitive in nature. When I do have dreams, intuitive to others' feelings, I'd say yes if I'm already focused on them. Highly empathic, sometimes to the point of confusion. This might be a attachment issue, but
and even some
don't know what's mine
stuff.
Takes criticism to heart. Longs to be seen, heard, understood. Am I a normal person? Highly susceptible to outsiders' viewpoints and opinions. 100%. At times adapts her view of life or actions based on others' opinions or words. 100%. Unfortunately. Recognizes own limitations in many areas daily, if not hourly. Becomes hurt when others question or doubt work. I don't know, who doesn't?
I know
it's many things. Like how much is just anxiety or like social stuff,
and maybe it's sort of just the level of intensity that hurt is. I think I think most people feel bummed if someone critiques their work, but then perhaps there are some of us who feel that at a much higher intensity than the quote unquote average person, whoever the fuck they are. Whoever you are.
Who are you? If you're an average person, let us know.
Write in. I'm telling you.
Views many things as an extension of self. But again, I don't feel like I feel like so many of these are not autism specific.
Sure.
Like I would say most of them. Dislikes words and events that hurt animals and people. Yes. I was vegan for 6 or 7 years. Collects or rescues animals, often in childhood, 100%.
Yes.
All the time. 7 horses at one point. A crazy person. Huge compassion for suffering, sometimes for inanimate objects, personification. Probably up until a teenager. Sensitive to substances. Now, this was interesting. Environmental toxins. Foods, yes. So certain foods can make me feel like tomato can be, I would eat that more slowly so that I don't feel sick. But it's not like sick as in I'm unwell.
Allergic,
like this weird stomach
reaction. Interesting.
Feels. I can eat and enjoy tomato, but I need to be aware of that.
Wow.
Alcohol, medication. So this is interesting. Hormones. I've started to wonder whether I don't like contraception because I like the predictability of things, and I can't handle not having, like, if my body is changing, I want to know why. So that I can handle it.
Yep.
And have the things happening in a certain order. And it makes me feel like time is passing as well, having this monthly cycle.
Yeah, right.
Tries to help, offers unsolicited advice, formalizes plans of action, probably. Questions life purpose. Yeah, I don't know. Seeks to understand abilities. I don't know. All right. Feels trapped between wanting to be herself and wanting to fit in. Yes. Imitates others without realizing it. Yes. Suppresses true wishes in young adulthood. Yes. Exhibits, and now exhibits. What is this young adulthood bullshit?
That's so judgy. Time limiting how long we can suppress our true wishes.
Exactly. Adapts self in order to avoid ridicule. Yeah. Rejects social norms and or questions social norms. I think so. Feelings of extreme isolation. Yeah. Feeling good about self takes a lot of effort and work. Yeah. Switches between preferences based on environment and other people. Yeah. I don't know how to stop doing that. If someone says they're hungry, I'll be like, yeah, sure. Like, me too. And then if no one had said they were hungry, I would never think of suggesting food. Things like that. Unless I felt like, oh, maybe I should.
Gotcha.
There's a lot of stuff like I can't do my own check-in and someone else's. So just take on whatever's happening.
Yeah. So you're sort of in mirroring mode.
Yeah.
Rather than if you were genuinely to stop and go, am I hungry? Like, do I want food?
Oh,
I'm not really sure. I don't know. Do you want food? I mean, I don't know.
Didn't care about hygiene, clothes, or appearances before teenage years or before people pointed it out. Yes, that was a big issue. Freaks out but doesn't know why until later. Yes. Some can attest to that too.
No, never. What are you saying?
Young sounding voice.
Interesting.
Some have said yes. Trouble recognizing what she looks like and or has occurrences of slight prosopagnosia. Difficulty recognizing or remembering faces. This is a big one, big issue.
Interesting.
So if I meet someone in the cafe downstairs, I will walk past them. In the car park next to the cafe and not know who they are.
Because it's a totally different context.
Yeah, they live at the cafe.
Yes.
In my mind, I have this
you're like,
issue.
that's the cafe face.
This has offended people so many times.
Yeah.
Feel significantly younger on the inside than on the outside. Yes. Had a hard time learning that others are not always honest. Yeah, I guess so, but I'm not sure if that's relevant. Feelings seem confusing, illogical, and unpredictable. Selves and others. Yes, that could be trauma. Confuses appointment times, numbers, and/or dates. Yes, expects by acting a certain way, certain results can be achieved. Yes, but realizes in dealing with emotions, these results don't always manifest. Yes. Spoke frankly and literally in youth. Yeah. Jokes go over the head. Yeah. confused when others ostracize, shun, belittle, trick, and betray. Yes. Trouble identifying feelings unless they are extreme. Yes. Trouble with emotions of hate and dislike.
Interesting.
I don't know what that
As
means.
it's hard to know just in that statement whether they're saying trouble deciphering those emotions, trouble feeling them or not feeling them. Hard to know. Yeah.
Or feel bad, I don't know. Feel sorry for someone who has persecuted her. But that's just, anyway. Personal feelings of anger, outrage, deep love, fear, giddiness, and anticipation seem to be easier to identify than emotions of joy, satisfaction, calmness, and serenity. Yes.
So the intensity, which makes sense with the one higher up, which talks about trouble identifying feelings unless they're extreme. So at those extreme or these intense levels, you know, those are easier to identify than perhaps those more kind of benign.
Difficulty recognizing how extreme emotions, outrage and deep love will affect her, and the challenges transferring what has been learned about emotions from one situation to the next. I'm not sure. Probably situations and conversations seem perceived as black or white. Yeah, but the middle spectrum of outcomes, events, and emotions sometimes overlooked or misunderstood. All or nothing. I think this is me naturally, but I've learned to not act on these things.
Yeah.
And I don't know whether it's trauma. A small fight, blah, 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 blah. Yeah. Okay. Numbers or patterns. Likes to know the origin of historical roots and foundation. So yes. So I did have a Greek Bible, started learning Greek when I was into that.
Wow. It's amazing.
And that kind of thing.
Yeah.
Confused when there is more than one meaning or spelling to a word. I don't. Sometimes. High interest in song or song lyrics. I can spend hours looking up song lyrics and the meanings and why and stuff like that. I waste entire evenings. Notices patterns frequently. Yes. Remembers things in visual pictures. Yes. Strings attach everything.
Yeah.
The world is strings.
It's all string. And that's amazing. Yeah.
Remembers exact details about someone's life. I'm thinking of a weird example, but
wow.
I can, if I'm interested in that person.
Yes.
If they're one of my probably two people that I can think about.
Yeah, at the moment.
I hold in my mind, then I'll probably remember everything, and then so it's uneven.
Yeah.
But like down to weird, irrelevant stuff. I want to give an example, but I'm not sure that I should.
That's fine.
I won't. I won't know them. Has a remarkable memory for certain details, yes, and then not others. Writes or creates to relieve anxiety, yes. Has feelings towards certain words or numbers, yes. Ego. I like the word ego, apparently.
Really?
It was on a number plate, and I liked I don't know. I just like the way it looked. I like the letter G, and just like the rest of it just sounds and looks nice. And then I got right into Freud, so I like all the meanings.
Not
into
ego.
Freud. I actually can't stand him. But
Freud's a dick.
He himself I don't like.
Yes,
but some of those ideas
are really interesting.
Interesting.
And does that then relate a little bit to font as well? In that the visual of a G in one font would be very different to the visual of a G in another.
Yeah. So I switched my writing style throughout school several times.
So like your handwriting
and could just
style?
change. Yeah, I could just change it, and that would be quite fun.
Yeah.
Yeah, and take away my focus from what I was actually doing.
Yes. Yes.
Wow. But fonts. Yeah. The words and numbers bring a sense of comfort and peace akin to a friendship. Yes. Executive functioning, simple tasks can cause extreme hardship. Yes. Learning to drive a car, rounding a corner or around the corner in a hallway can be learning to drive a car or rounding the corner in a hallway can be troublesome, yes. New places offer their own set of challenges. Yeah. Anything that requires a reasonable amount of steps. Yeah. Dexterity or know-how can arouse a sense of panic. Yes. Thought of repairing, fixing, or locating something can cause anxiety. Yeah. Mundane tasks are avoided. Yes. Cleaning self and home may seem insurmountable. Yes, but I have like systems around it now.
Yeah.
Many questions come to mind when setting about to do a task. Yes. Might leave the house with mismatched socks always.
Like, no, that's just that's one of my life choices. It's my lifestyle. Mismatched socks.
A trip to the grocery store can be overwhelming. I just don't go. Trouble copying dance steps, big problem at the moment. Aerobic moves, directions in a gym class. Yes. What has a hard time finding certain objects in the house, but remembers with exact clarity where others are. Not being able to locate something or thinking about locating something can cause feelings of intense anxiety, object permanence challenges. Even something as simple as opening an envelope. I do not open envelopes unless I know what's in there.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Okay. So with that in mind, do you then sort of just throw them out, or it's sort of this thing of like
eventually? So there'll be certain awarenesses. So if it's red, I know I'm in trouble and I'll go, but that's enough information. Like if it says something like City of Perth and it's red, I'm like, okay, I've got a ticket.
Right.
That's enough.
Okay.
But I won't see the warnings coming up to the red one.
Yes, gotcha.
And like for the census, I knew that mail was probably coming, or I'd seen that people were doing that. So I would be aware of keeping I would probably keep an eye out for that. But I don't, or like but so I need some predictability. I don't just open any mail.
And would that then transfer to say when you and your ex shared living spaces at different points in time, would it have been similar that you also wouldn't want him to open it, or it's okay if he does, it's just more that you can't sort of do the unpredictability of it?
Yeah, it's okay if he does. Probably not in front of me.
Gotcha. Yeah.
But it's just uncomfortable, so I could handle it. I guess that this is the kind of stuff that makes me avoid social situations, because it's like it's going into an unknown number of these little issues and that I can't control. And can't even decide, can't even say like, oh, can you not do that in front of me? Or like so you don't know what's going to come up or what's going to occur. But I think that in that one, so that one's probably there's a certain feeling of social pressure around mail. So it's like, if I think that because I have enough issues with my messages, unless you're one of the two people, and mail's in that category where and so much of it seems so pointless. So I really don't see. I guess this might come down to. I feel like this might be jarring for some people to hear, but really, I don't feel like if I'm waiting for reminders for things, for bills or stuff, that there's nothing bad has happened from that. So I don't really. So I guess relying on them makes me feel more comfortable than also because it's like, okay, I could go through my mail. Or I could organise a booking, or I could, but I can't do it all. So,
yes. Yeah.
And I don't know, I'm not very good at when I get a message, unless I'm clear on the purpose, it's very hard for me to decide how to respond.
Yes. Yeah.
It feels a little bit like it does feel like having to write a poem on the spot, which I guess is why I like poetry in a way, because it's a similar process, but it's like, I don't know how to make it so that the mood comes up at the end the right way, at the right time. And I have to really be conscious of that. So I think mail just goes in that category. Similar of like thing. Pressure. Yeah.
It's going to require some kind of response. And do I have the resources, energy, mental energy, whatever to do that now? It's sort of, or is that something that I can leave till another point in time? Yeah. Makes sense.
It has been interesting to even explore, like, this could be either way. I would have never framed my interests as intense, but then you go, maybe, like, they're quite present. But it's just fascinating.
Yeah.
Thought process.
Yeah. I was just saying to my niece the other day, who's going to have some, like, an educational assessment coming up soonish, and for her personally, she's sort of hoping to have a diagnosis of some kind around some of the, like, the challenges that she experiences in processing and kind of scheduling around school and whatever. And what I was saying to her was, sometimes, even regardless of whether there's a formal diagnosis, what these tests can be so useful for is finding that you're not the only person who has felt, who faces some of those things. And that means there's a whole world of resources. There's a whole lot of people that have gone, hey, I have issues with, these 3 things, and I found this app, or I found this strategy, or I found this book, or this article, or this whatever, so what it does is it then opens up this whole world of information and ideas and things to try that make life fit for you, so it's almost like the outcome, and very true, particularly for young people and kids in particular. Educational assessments, for example, if you do get a diagnosis, often that opens pathways through the structures of education for support hours and things like that, modified assessment. So there are benefits in that regard. But I think the biggest benefit, regardless of whether you get your diagnosis or not, is as you say, this whole new world of understanding for things that you have lived your life with.
And being able to explain things.
Like having the words.
Describe it, people. Totally. I was saying to Jen and Pet the other day when we were recording that I didn't know that not everyone saw the world as attached by strings. Like I didn't realize, because for me, it's such a way of not just physically understanding things like playing music or pole dancing. It's also a way of conceptualizing relationships. So if I upset somebody, so if somebody is upset by something I did, that means it actually means even this sounds cold, but for me, that's a sign that we have a string attached. So if they've been pulled by my behavior, and that is an incentive to then not do that, or explain what's going, make that a more gentle pull, or something like that. But it's also not any emotional response I see as string pulling. So
which means that a string and a relationship exists.
Exactly. So the lack of that can mean that there isn't. And then I was also thinking of like my time. So say I've got like all of these things in my life and they're strings pulling me in different directions. I can feel sort of trapped by that. But if I let go of one, then suddenly, because that was pulling me in this direction, all the other strings can start shifting me. Because I'm not being pulled in. If I'm pulled in every direction, there's this stagnant feeling. But if I can choose to let go of one, often the other directions can then shift because I'm not, the tension isn't in all directions. So it's just an interesting, this is how I conceptualize absolutely everything.
Yeah.
And just to go, I didn't realize this is why some conversations are quite exhausting for me, because I have to put it into a language that is more suitable to other people. And I've often thought, why don't we just talk about it like string?
Yeah.
But instead of talking about time.
Yeah. Yeah. Why?
Or energy. Yeah. So.
Yeah.
Or like, and I understand it's not a physical string; it's a philosophy or a principle.
Yes.
But it's so just knowing, like, oh, that's a me thing.
Right.
Handy to be aware of that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's not to say that it's in any way an unhelpful thing. I think it sounds like a really interesting and helpful way of conceptualizing the world. So just, it being a you thing is in no way like, oh, it's the wrong thing. But it can then make sense of times where you might be in an interaction with someone else and going, how are they not getting where I'm coming?
Yeah.
Like, because you
so
were sort of under the understanding
to me with
that
a conflict, there was this sense of excitement that they feel close to me.
Yeah, totally.
That because they were coming.
Yeah.
Yeah, and so I can feel things kind of backwards.
Yeah.
Whereas some people, I think, have felt like, don't you feel negative about the content of what I'm saying? And I can be like, well, I'm going to take that seriously. But I actually just didn't realize we were close.
Yeah, yes, absolutely.
And now I do know.
Yeah, I get that though. I think it's that thing of, conflict or those conversations mean that we actually give a shit.
Exactly.
Because if we didn't, it wouldn't, who would really care if I've, said or done something that bothered you a bit if I didn't really matter, or you didn't matter to me. Yeah, totally. Yeah, that makes total sense. But I can totally also see how in the moment of conflict, it would be it might feel like you're not taking this seriously or whatever.
Yes. Yeah.
And in fact, you're like, no, don't you get it? The fact that
they were probably already aware that we were close.
Yeah.
And I'm just there. I'm like,
like, cool. Wait, this is new information.
Yeah.
And I just need a moment to celebrate, and then I will be with you.
Yeah.
Yeah, totally. Yeah.
So, and I have been really weighing up. Because I feel like, because I know enough about it, I know that it would be challenging. I have a psychiatrist appointment on Monday, but and I'll bring it up, but I know that it's challenging for women who present well to get a diagnosis.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And I know it's, it could be expensive, and it's definitely getting a full assessment could be complicated, but also it might really pay off in other ways. Absolutely. And then at the same time, I'm like, do I believe that I could have autism? That's a whole other separate
thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But do I identify with that just because I can see enough persistent traits that have been there since I was, 2 years old or whatever, even losing my speech or like I can go, oh yeah. But then again, because I can see potentially other reasons. So I can see a use. I think I will pursue a diagnosis. The thing is, it feels like a decision for me because because of the way the system works.
Yeah.
I don't feel like it's really up to the practitioners who can diagnose. It's up to how persistent you are.
Oh, absolutely.
Unfortunately. And I don't think that there's...
I think, and especially so with girls and women.
Yeah.
Who don't present in as explicit ways as boys and men do.
Yeah.
Very much so.
And I mean, with autism, it's hard. So it's hard enough to get an ADHD diagnosis, but then if you get an autism diagnosis, there's a lot more resources. So there's an incentive for them to take that diagnosis more seriously because then there'll be, help available.
Yeah.
And I do actually feel it's help that I might need on a couple of fronts.
Yeah, for sure.
But do I feel like I don't... do I feel like, I think I'm getting past I'm trying to decide whether I feel like it's inherent, because I do believe that autism is a very legitimate experience and different brain function experience.
Absolutely.
Do I really think I'm that, or am I just seeing the benefit in being able to fit that diagnosis?
I think it's really tricky. That's a really tricky thing. I think I know I have a number of good friends and family members who have formal diagnoses of being on the autism spectrum disorder, ASD, and some of whom received diagnoses of Asperger's, which was prior to the most recent diagnostic manual. Asperger's was a separated or differentiated diagnosis from ASD, whereas now they are sort of subsumed together.
Yeah.
And I think in a lot of the reading I've done and also the observing of how different friends and family and others have moved through the process, I think, like many things in life, autism can be different things to different people. So for some people, it's a medical diagnosis that opens the door for resources and support around very specific limitations that they experience in their daily lives. For others, it can just be, not just, sorry, that's the wrong word, but it can be a framework to just understand their experience of the world. And so it can be this kind of freeing sense of, oh, I get it. Like, this is why I've felt very different, or this is why I've faced some of these challenges. And almost it's more like an information resource and a release, and it's almost just an affirming thing of who I am and why I might have felt like I was on the outside looking in, you know. And then there are very validating. Yeah. And that validation can be very individual, but then there are others for whom the diagnosis means community. So there are certainly people who very strongly resonate with autism as an identity and a cultural community that they're a part of. And that's wonderful. But there are also plenty of people with that diagnosis who don't feel that way. And I'm very passionate about, because I know and love some people who don't necessarily feel that strong affinity as a cultural identity marker, but feel somewhat shamed by others who do feel that strong cultural identity. This sense that if you don't feel that strong cultural identity, you are feeling deficit messages about yourself and about who you are. And I think for me, the number one thing is it can be different for everyone, and everyone's experience is valid and should be affirmed. So whether it is freeing in information as an individual, whether it's connecting to this whole culture and community and this place where you feel, you feel this sense of clicking with who you are in a community sense, or if it's just but if it's a diagnosis that assists you with resources for your individual needs, I think all of that is valid. All of it is valid. So I don't think there is a wrong way, And people might move through each of those experiences differently. Some people might have all three, some people might have none, Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah, it makes sense. It's sort of, I feel like it's not like getting a diagnosis of because it's also not something to be fixed. That's one thing. So it's not like it shouldn't even be called a diagnosis. I don't think.
That's a whole other thing. Yeah.
It's and it's not decided in the same way. Like it really would come down to, so if I could go to 70 different doctors and say my leg is broken, but if my leg isn't broken, they're not going to tell me my leg is broken.
Yeah.
And then whereas in this case, I feel like I could just persist until I get a diagnosis, which is a different, which then it does become a more personal experience and a more personal, way of managing it. Especially when you have that ability. So I feel for people who can't persist for one reason or another.
Absolutely.
And could benefit from knowing this about
yes,
themselves. So
absolutely. And the sort of systems of support that then you can tap into once you have your formalized bit of paper.
Yeah.
I know there was someone posted which was about ADHD, but it's very similar in this. Someone had posted, a comedian who lives with ADHD, and she was saying it's basically like your doctor is like, congratulations, you finally gotten to the point where we're approving you for medication. Finally, hooray, you're going to get the support you need. But there's a little trick. The trick is, if you've been able to navigate the fucking hurdles and systems to get to a point where you can actually access the meds, half of the argument is you don't even need them. Like, as in the capacity you need to navigate these systems makes you second guess whether you even need the support. Of course you do. The issue is not that you now are quote unquote too capable. It's that the systems are fucked. And you need this huge amount of agency and capacity to navigate just getting your needs met. It's fascinating. So unfair, but
so interesting.
That's what she was reflecting on, is this sense almost of like, I'm finally able to access these meds that I've needed for so long, but now I'm almost second guessing, do I even need them? Because I've had to navigate all these things, and that's had to use all this energy.
Like everything that you would struggle with with that diagnosis, you've proven that you can do.
But what I would argue is at massive cost. Yes, at massive cost, which is why the issue is the system, not whether or not it's valid for you to get the meds. It's the fact that the system is so fucked that it has all those barriers that mean that often people who need it absolutely the most cannot access it.
That's it.
But at that same time, I also don't think that because people who perhaps have the greatest need can't navigate those systems, I don't think that means that people who have needs and who do manage to navigate those systems aren't still valid in getting support. It doesn't mean you shouldn't get support.
It should be both.
It should be both. Ideally, it should be
both categories.
Everyone gets the support they need,
Yes. It's fascinating.
Mindfuck, hey?
I was, I did, since just recognizing and reading that list and stuff, I have noticed things so differently. So, or like gone through things so differently, like especially like pole lessons. So my teacher, she had said that she teaches me very differently, and that we do more talking about it rather than showing. And then it grows easier. And she also sort of said at the end of it, we did some different stretches. We did an hour of stretching the other day, and it was all very new stuff. And I couldn't understand why pushing my legs down was making my body go down. I just couldn't get my head around it. So it's just this weird move. I was like, I feel like my legs are going into the floor. Why? And she was like, I'm going to give you an explanation. So we just sit down like cross-legged, talking to each other for a while with blocks showing me. So, and I didn't know that this was something she was doing for me, like until recently.
Right.
I need to really
understand
have a visual representation that's external to a person. That's really important. So that I can, because you can't really look at a person really and do this, move them around and point and have this
it's breaking it down into those steps, because with say if Dali got up on the pole, you can't go, okay, so now if we yank your left leg down, what happens? And if we
and she said, like, each side of this block, so, the blocks are about a foot tall. She's like, each side is the side of your body,
right?
Then if we're going to stretch one side, like one side is stretching, the other side needs to clench. And so you're building up strength on one side to stretch the other. And if you reach a limit, then you go back to stretching. And then the opposite is true. So then she was like, okay, now the block is your leg. We're trying to stretch your hamstrings. which then connects to your back, which stretch your hamstrings. There's only so far you can go just by stretching until you have to clench your quads. So then it'll incidentally stretch further.
Yeah.
You can't choose to do that. I was like, oh, okay. And then it clicked for me for the first time ever. So then I was picturing the strings inside my legs are now rubber bands.
Yeah.
And so by coiling one side, the other side has to stretch.
Yes.
And then by doing the other, and vice versa. And so then I can just sort of work out if that's connected to another string, then that's why my body, I do it just all, okay, easy. But then it occurred to me for the first time ever, I need to explain to her strings. So,
yes.
And I was able to say, sometimes I picture this as strings.
Yeah.
And more so when we're on the pole, momentum being pulled up by strings.
Yeah.
And she got it, which was good, because then it's like, a shared.
Yes.
It makes it easier for her, because I can't imagine how much effort she's been putting into to explain things to me so that it clicks. I didn't know. She did tell me recently, and this was part of why I started looking stuff up, that she was teaching me very differently.
Because I think, how do I feel, would it be accurate that the kind of standard way of teaching would be demonstration and then supporting people to learn pieces at a time based on having observed her do it or others in the class do it? Is that?
And feeling it. Yes, that's right. So you watch and then you do it.
Try. Yeah.
And then you feel tension, or you feel things.
Yeah. The sense of what that move actually feels in your body. And so then there's a physical memory of that as well.
Yes, that's right. Yeah.
Whereas for you, that's a bit different.
No matter how present I've become, that doesn't resonate at all.
The physical memory isn't really there. Yeah.
No, it's not. It's really not. So and for me, just because everything is in strings, it's sort of more how are things. It's more about where am I pushing momentum rather than what am I feeling. And my experience of pain is just so wildly different. Some things hurt more, other things hurt less. No matter how, and I've broken it down. I've worked really hard on trying to recognize being present, and still it's been different. So I'm I can't work with that. So and having to externalize it and picture myself as now a block, or how as a thing, or coiling strings. It's just a different process. So it's so fascinating. It's just it's useful. It's useful already.
Yes.
So that's nice.
That's
it's
great.
Been amazing. Just a week or two of maybe I need to explain how I'm thinking about this. And
and I think that is so true of all of us. We all have our own languages and our own perspectives that we're assuming everyone else is sharing, and then we come up against things and we go, is that might just be me, that's just me, okay. And ideally you have, whether it's in a work setting or in a relationship or in your family or whatever, you have people around that you can go, okay, I might need to give you like a hint card on my language or my my visualization of this, so we can then actually we're on the same page about how we're understanding what we're both doing here.
That's it. No, it's so
amazing.
Interesting. I
love it.
I've started to wonder whether it's like a lot of the reason why work has been so great, because like a lot of my clients have similar traits, but I hadn't recognized them in myself. So I'm like, maybe that's why we get on so well, or why it's just, I don't know whether that's related or not. Whether we have a shared language already, or hard to tell.
Or even just a shared understanding that of having had different languages to to others around you.
Suddenly relating. Relating with that, or being a bit quirky, or being or kind of liking some rules. The rule, like, around
Yeah,
how it
totally.
operates. So I don't know.
Absolutely.
Anyway, we have gone on for quite a while.
That's because we're fascinating people, Tess.
Thanks for everyone who comes here for sexy content, for listening to learning about how diagnoses work. And
well, and if it resonates, I hope it's, you know, a little helpful or interesting. And and to me, the ultimate takeaway is that we are, you know, we are all moving through the world with very unique experiences of it. And if we can find ways to be gracious with ourselves and each other, you know, at the very least, you know, that's an important thing, I think, you know.
Yeah, absolutely.
And take a test or a quiz and, you know, find all sorts of interesting things about yourself, and validating.
Female as well. Like a lot of the studies done on things like, so I think ADHD, the studies done on ADHD, I think like 2% were done with females.
Yeah.
Weird. And
autism would be similar, I would assume.
I think so. So the way it's written isn't really even, I mean, I feel like the way the diagnosis, like the criteria is written, is kind of unhelpful anyway, because they use everyday language in a scientific way. So it's hard to understand.
Yeah.
But
what's actually being asked.
But so going into, do a test.
Jump on a forum, read what other people's experiences are like. If nothing else, it can be just really validating, or it could be eye-opening about maybe some of the things that your partner might, you know, you might see your partner or your good friend or your dad or your whoever, you know. Either way, it's valuable.
Absolutely. Thanks for listening, everybody.
Guys, take care.
Thanks for joining us, Monty. I don't know where he is.
Oh, hang on, let me get him. Oh my God. Can you see him?
Oh my God, look at him, so cute. So cute. Oh my goodness.
He still thinks he's like a tiny, tiny baby puppy. So he still likes to sleep in his puppy pillow. Oh, have you heard us talking about you, Monty? All right. I love you, everyone.